Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Thursday edition of the Blood Red podcast, brought to you by the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Theo Squires, and we've got a jam-packed episode for you today, so let's sail through all these pleasantries. Joining me, we have our LFC correspondent, both home and away, Paul Gorst. How are you, Gorsty?
Good, yeah. Where are we now? First week of June. It's normally like a bit of a very quiet time, isn't it, for Liverpool? You know, post-season glow, and players on international duty and all that, but it feels like there's been quite a bit happening this week, and we've got quite a lot to get through, haven't we? So, yeah, good.
We also have our chief LFC writer, Ian Doyle, who was back at Anfield last night. How are you, Doyley?
I'm okay, but you know what I'm going to say now, don't you?
High-pitched voice.
Yeah.
As soon as I started, I knew. I didn't even look up to you. I knew.
Why is it so high? Come on.
I don't know.
Do you notice, like, you'll get this reference, Stewie to Brian on Family Guy?
Yes. Friends become enemies, enemies become friends. We want to reach for the experience. Let's just... yes, I was at Bruce Springsteen last night. He was very good. And he's also playing on Saturday. If anybody wants to get along there, I recommend it. Not as good as Finch, but, you know, not bad. Not bad for 75. He's 75, tell you what. If I'm moving like that at 75, then fair play.
Move like that at 45?
We are live on YouTube, so send in your questions and all your comments. There's already plenty of transfer talk for us to discuss in today's episode, but I'm sure you'll have plenty of questions for the guys here, so send them in. And we do also actually have one very important deal to start with. Can you guess what it is?
Yes.
It's
Saley.
NordVPN,
Yes.
Our sponsors, have a new app available for download, which will be available for your reliable and affordable internet access on your trip abroad. I've already butchered this. But yeah, it's Saley. It's a new eSIM service app brought to you by the creators of NordVPN. Here you can choose from several affordable eSIM data plans in over 200 destinations. With Saley eSIM, you'll always have a connection when needed. Is one of those destinations Japan or Hong Kong? Great, so obviously you're sorted for later in the summer.
Yep.
You can download Saley in your app store and use our code BLOODRED at checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. For more information, please go to our episode description box for further details and click saley.com/bloodred. I'm reliably informed if you actually click that link, it will also already have put the code in for you rather than having to do all that yourself. So what you're
reliably informed? You know that it does it because we've all done it.
I haven't done it. I only came back in this week, didn't I, for a few days off? He told me.
Really? Okay.
Producer Ian told me, so he is a reliable producer. Fine. Anyway, that's one deal done. We'll move on to Luis Diaz straight away. Barcelona have had an offer rejected, haven't they, Gorsty? You wrote yesterday that Liverpool don't want to sell, and that seems to have been even more so the case today after this latest update. But they aren't giving him a new contract either. So
yeah, I don't know whether hard copies of the Echo get delivered on La Ramblas, but if they do, then Deco might have saved himself a phone call by reading that Liverpool have no plans to sell Luis Diaz. And yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? You know, speaking to people about it yesterday, and a little bit confused and puzzled as to why there was so much speculation around Luis Diaz's future, because they hadn't been approached by anyone. Barcelona and Al Nassr of the Saudi Pro League are the clubs who, you know, are admiring Luis Diaz from afar, but no formal approaches or anything like that up until yesterday. So, yeah, Barca sporting director Deco got on the phone and got told unequivocally, really, that Liverpool have no intention of selling Luis Diaz. And I think he's become as the season's gone on, more important, hasn't he, for Arne Slot? He obviously starts the season out on the left wing, juggling with Cody Gakpo for game time, and then plays as a number 9 while Diogo Jota is injured for the best part of 4 months. And it just becomes a really important part of the front line, doesn't he, with Cody Gakpo and Mo Salah, of course. So, yeah, 2 years left on his contract, but no plans as things stand to open up talks. You know, I think Liverpool feel quite relaxed that 2 years out is more than enough time to see how his form develops and whatever else. And so at the moment, no plans to sell, and Barcelona were told as much yesterday.
Do we reckon that stance is something that's going to stay the case, Doyley, or is it at any price? If they beat a good price, that's going to be enough. It's just putting that cash down when you know Saudi are potentially sniffing around as well.
Well, what might change is if the player decides he wants to go. And then Liverpool will be well within their rights to say, okay, fine, but only if we get X amount of money, which would be a lot. For example, I know that Bruno Fernandes was valued at 100 million euros by the Saudi Pro League. Obviously, he's decided not to go, and he's 2 years older than Diaz, so Liverpool believe Diaz. Well, I would imagine Liverpool would probably look at that and go, well, Diaz is obviously worth round about that, at least. Different types of players, obviously, different positions, but certainly not for a cut price deal because he's still got 2 years left on his current contract. So Liverpool aren't really in the position where they have to kind of move him on. Say if he was at 12 months left on his deal, and then you might think, well, we're not going to get anything for him 12 months time, so maybe we could accept an offer. Like, for example, has happened with Queven Keller, although obviously it's a little bit different situation there with him obviously wanting to go and get him first team football elsewhere. So I think with Diaz, Liverpool have shown in the past that they're quite happy to keep older players who run down their contracts if they can still be of use to the team. And the thing is that if Liverpool do keep him for the 2 years, it gives them an extra 2 years to find somebody to replace him at a certain cost point, because last season they were very close to buying Anthony Gordon from Newcastle. I know they still like him, but that deal only becomes necessary if Diaz goes.
And it is a case where a number of Liverpool players have gone on frees in recent years. Trent's obviously the most, well, not even free, but he would have been.
Emre Can, Roberto Firmino. I know some of them are different ages.
Trent was the only one that Liverpool didn't want to go on a free, though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But is this really the right approach, that they are so relaxed about these contracts, that they are happy to see them expire to get that extra year from the player rather than cashing in, because they've still had to spend money to sign replacements for these players?
Yeah, I think some players are more valuable keeping them for the year, aren't they, and trying to get whatever you're trying to achieve that season, whether it's win the title itself or get in the Champions League. And for someone like Gino Wijnaldum, that was probably the right strategy to take, wasn't it? Maybe Roberto Firmino as well. You could argue someone like Ibrahim Konate now would it be more beneficial to sell at a certain point, or do you trust that you can get a new contract over the line over the next few months and get it sealed? So I don't think there's a sort of blanket approach to this. I think it very much depends on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, I think at the moment Liverpool don't need to make any major decisions with Luis Diaz. I think he's probably earned himself sort of played his way to the negotiating table with a new contract. But Liverpool at the moment don't feel like they need to do that. They've obviously just come off, year-long negotiations with Van Dijk and Salah and Trent, and won 2 out of 3 of those, and Konate is up next, and Jurel Kwanzaa was in there as well, wasn't he? So I guess they think only so many contract discussions you can have at any one time, and maybe Diaz is further back in the queue. So, I can see Liverpool's point on this one in terms of having 2 years left. There's no real, they don't need to jump in head first, but from the player's point of view, he might feel that he has played himself into those talks, and he said as much, didn't he? So it was at Telemundo last month when he believed that he would be sitting down and talking through the sort of specifics of a new deal. But certainly this season he's grown in importance for Arne Slot, and I can see why Liverpool are reluctant to sort of discard him, certainly on the cheap.
My issue with Diaz is he starts the season really well, he ends the season really well, but then he sometimes goes missing a little bit in the middle, and he's just not quite offering, say, Salah levels, Mane levels in that attacking third. So I think it's a reason why there's almost every summer there's a willingness from the fan base to an acknowledgement that he might go on. But it just seems to be something that gets said every summer, and then he ends up staying put. Like, with 2 years now we've had this with Anthony Gordon as well. So how do you guys actually see this playing out with Luis Diaz?
I mean, I think the great unknown, isn't it, is what happens with Saudi Arabia. Al Hilal offering, like Doyle mentioned there, the fee for Bruno Fernandes, and then he comes out and publicly makes clear that he's going to stay. And was Al Nasser who were interested in Diaz, and they're both owned by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. So obviously we're not privy to how it works with the specifics of it all, but is there £100 million burning a hole in a Public Investment Fund transfer kitty? So it's unclear what happens with Saudi Arabia, but I would question whether Barcelona have got the funds to do a deal for Diaz, because Liverpool don't want to sell. They've already got Rafinha and Lamine Yamal, not necessarily pressing concerns for them to bring in another big money winger. So if they try and get him on the cheap, Liverpool, I'm sure, will resist all of that and would they go and spend 80 million upwards to bring him in? I'm not sure they would. So, well, there obviously is interest there from Barca. I don't see it happening at this stage.
Be interesting if it had been the approach was from Saudi here and then is on the table rather than it being Barcelona when you have got those financial difficulties in recent years.
Yeah, I think with Barcelona, again, they're probably looking to get whoever in on the cheap, let's be honest. I think that's what they want. And maybe we don't know what the actual amount was whether even an amount got mentioned, but Liverpool just dismissed it. Liverpool dismissed it out of hand anyway and just said, look, we're not interested. So from that point of view, it would take a very large offer for Liverpool to even, think about it. And as I said, even then, depends what the player wants. So if it's the other way around, the player comes to Liverpool, as I said before, Liverpool aren't going to shift that stance because they know quite well that if Diaz goes to his final 2 years of his contract and runs them down, that in some ways also suits the player himself because then he's got free reign to do what he wants, but he'll be 30 by then. And then you've got slightly more limited options depending on how clubs want to go because it doesn't sit, with the exception of Inter Milan, who signed everybody over the age of 40 by the way they played in the Champions League final, is clubs are signing players younger and younger, and the leading clubs don't want to take on players in their 30s by and large.
It'd be no shock to me if he wanted to go to Barcelona. He's obviously a South American player who, more often than not, players from that region tend to gravitate towards Real Madrid and Barcelona, don't they? One or the other. So I wouldn't be shocked if he did fancy a crack at, I'm just going to call it the Nou Camp then. Is it still called the Nou Camp?
Camp Nou.
Camp Nou, Spotify Camp Nou.
Spotify on now.
But
are they even playing it at the moment? Are they still in the Olympic Stadium?
I think they're either going back there partially open this season or next season or the season after. They're close to partially going back, basically.
But, everything he said recently in terms of how happy he is at Liverpool, why wouldn't you believe what he's saying? He's saying it to sort of Spanish-speaking media in Telemundo. He's also saying it to official club channels. And the theme tends to be a consistent one that he absolutely loves playing and being at Liverpool. So, don't think he's going to particularly rock the boat, but I wouldn't be shocked if a move to Barcelona appealed to him. But like I say, I'm not sure Barcelona have got the clout to be able to do it.
I'll bring in a couple of comments now just because one of them has made me chuckle. LFC SG, obviously I said Diaz goes missing in the middle of the season. He goes, Darwin goes missing in the summer, autumn, spring and winter. So that's lovely, isn't it?
So well done. So two-footed Nunes. Go on, continue.
I've noticed.
Yeah, but you didn't have to read it out, did you?
And then, assuming the money was similar, would you boys prefer to keep Diaz or Cody Gakpo if one of them had to go? Obviously, Gakpo's
don't want either of them to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think those two and Salah are the top three, aren't they, from the five at the moment? If you're looking at a sort of ranking order or whatever. So, yeah, we don't want either to go, really.
And then, unsurprisingly, we've got a lot of Wirtz comments coming in. I need a Wirtz update. What do we know is happening with Wirtz? So, you did
he's definitely still German.
He's definitely still German. Yeah. He played a game last night. He scored.
He did score a goal, yes. And he got stopped in the mix. Well, he didn't get stopped in the mix zone at all.
He got held up.
He got one of our colleagues who works for one of the more. I better be careful what I say. Another newspaper. He said something on the lines of, "Are you excited about coming to Liverpool?" And then he just.
Are you trying to say it like this colleague in question?
Got a nod. He got a nod, and having spoken to the person in question, kind of said, "Look, it could have been a nod, anything. Look, we've been in enough mix zones over the years to know that whenever you ask a player to stop, they won't exactly just completely ignore you. They'll just acknowledge your existence, then walk off."
Got a lot of traction on social media, though, didn't it?
It did, because that's a little glimpse into what life's like as a journalist after a game, just being blanked by footballers. Full stop.
Yeah, I mean, you can read into it what you want, can't you? But obviously, for those who unaware what we're talking about, Luis Diaz of the Daily Mail was in the Alliance.
Just say what it is, yeah.
And
named and shamed.
Yeah, no, not shaming him at all. He's there to cover the game, and he was obviously there to get some form of update on Florian Wirtz. And he walked past him in the mix zone, and he said, "Florian, are you excited to go to Liverpool?" And he just sort of gives a look and a nod and just carries on walking, doesn't he? And a lot of people have seen the clip on social media, and
it's on Sky now as well.
Is it? Yeah, really. And I think that's pretty much
nothing's happening
where we are up to on that. I mean, the club's supporters don't want to hear this. Supporters just think it's a case of putting in the offer in and on you go. But talks are ongoing, and there's no sense that it's going to collapse or anything like that, and it's actually only been going on, really, less than a week.
How many of these supporters, by the way, I think it's done quickly, have bought a house?
Well, yeah. So, we are where we are. But, yeah, Liverpool still working on a deal to bring in Florian Wirtz on a club record deal, and just trying to reach a figure with Leverkusen now is pretty much where we're at.
Surely when he's playing international football at the moment, you weren't expecting an overnight resolution anyway. It's always going to take that little bit of time.
Well, it doesn't really matter. He's done his bit, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, by all accounts, let's put it this way. We know he wants to go to Liverpool, and normally the inference there is that there's going to be no problems over the personal terms. Let's be quite grown up about this. So it is about the club, so he can just crack on, and he'll have probably said to Leverkusen and Liverpool, come on, sort it out. I'm going playing footy now, bye.
Yeah, and I think Leverkusen... Well, I think both clubs are looking to resolve it sooner rather than later, but that doesn't mean you're just going to say yes to anything that comes across the negotiating table. But
we're talking millions of pounds, like
hundreds,
yeah, exactly.
100 million
it's
upwards.
A lot of money.
And for Leverkusen, they've just lost Jonathan Tah, they've lost Xabi Alonso, they're resigned to losing Wirtz. So Frimpong, yeah. So they, I guess, could use the money to reinvest and give Erik ten Hag all the tools he needs to rebuild the Leverkusen squad to go again and challenge Bayern Munich for next season. So that's why they're looking to do a deal quickly. Liverpool likewise, because I guess Liverpool would want him in time for pre-season. So yeah, it's just a case of waiting it out. And I think it speaks to the sort of shortness of the concentration span generally now that people seem to think this is a saga. I remember Real Madrid trying to get Gareth Bale for about 4 months and then eventually get him sort of late August, I think.
Even that's not that much of a saga. I remember ones that gone 6 and 9 months, but because it's not like done immediately, people just like go, oh, it's over, it's finished club, etc.
Spurs probably stung, aren't they? Because you've seen Caicedo collapse, you've seen Zubamendi collapse. There's probably that fear there, but
they've signed quite a lot of players in the meantime who've done quite well. And
Wirtz has made it quite clear that Liverpool's his choice.
Yeah, that's the difference there, is that obviously Zubamendi was never fully convinced, clearly. I think that was more to do with the fact he had to pay his own release clause in one go, but that's a different story. And Caicedo obviously had made his mind if he wanted to go to Chelsea, so you're always going to be up against it with those two. And Zubamendi still not signed for Arsenal, has he?
No. We haven't even mentioned the Instagram post yet, have we?
Which one? There's been
the one about the shirts?
Tuesday night. Yeah. So for anyone, again, who hasn't seen it, so reports in Germany that Wirtz had asked for, or demanded rather, Alexis McAllister's number 10 shirt, and he took to social media to shoot that down and said, who says I've asked for the 10? I respect players, don't believe everything that's written, followed by a clown emoji, which was almost like, inadvertently admitting that he is on his way to Liverpool, I guess.
I quite like the fact that he spoke out about it as well. Obviously, he's
as long as he
to
speaks out to us after the game if he signs. Yeah,
well, maybe you'll get a nod of acknowledgement. Maybe that's as far as you'll get.
Yeah, the thing is, he'll remember Lewis now, won't we? Lewis Steele of the Daily Mail.
I like the fact that he did address it like that, because it shows that he's not going to necessarily rock the boat, be this big prima donna. It is that respect for the dressing room that he's walking into.
It's almost like you've written this, isn't it?
It's almost this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is that respect.
And the funny thing is that very much in a coincidence that McAllister was interviewed in, whether it was in Argentina, certainly by a
radio station.
It's a radio station, wasn't it? Yeah, and just before this came out, he got asked about the number 10 shirt at Liverpool, and he says wearing it's a big responsibility. I love wearing it. I don't want to let people down, etc., etc., etc. So it just happened to be that these two things coincided to make a decent, as we say, news story.
One of the things that sort of come back from German media in recent weeks is just the Wirtz and his family, his parents basically guide them, and his dad is actually his official representative. They've been very irritated by Bayern Munich's confidence, overconfidence in just believing that he's going to choose them, because they are so used to getting the players they want in the Bundesliga and so used to hoovering up all the best German talent that the bit of complacency set in, and they were maybe speaking to one or two journalists privately that they thought it was a done deal, and that wasn't the case. So for Wirtz to speak out on Instagram on Tuesday night, I think it was, wasn't it? I think that gives a bit more credence to that theory that he was a little bit irritated by the hubris coming from Bayern Munich's camp.
Hubris is a great word. and We don't hear that often enough in this podcast.
You gonna get any copy today? Fit it
No,
in
that's copy,
already been
not
in.
a podcast.
It's already in.
Yeah,
Okay.
clearly reading the stuff.
Exactly. Thanks for your stuff. I haven't read it.
As a sports editor once said.
Milos Kerkez now reports this week that Liverpool are stepping up talks. I think you've written that yourself as well, Doyley. Where are we?
When was it? Did it right yesterday?
Yesterday.
It's yes. Well, yeah. I mean, let's be honest. They're probably going to sign him sooner rather than later. He's been less. If you think that Wirtz has offered some hints on social media, then have a look what Kerkez has been doing for the last couple of months, and then goes, "I'm very surprised that people are saying this about me." It's like, well, I wonder why.
He has the little selfie of Szoboszlai in the dressing room.
Exactly,
after a
yeah,
defeat,
and it's
doesn't he?
like him and other people are exchanging eye emojis and clocks and.
You didn't have to talk about this when you started, did you?
No,
All those
Hourglasses.
years ago.
yeah, that's what I was looking for. Hourglasses, thank you. As hourglasses. Anyway, yeah, that was terrible, wasn't it? I'm really, really sorry. Yes, Kerkez. Liverpool quite clearly want him. Bournemouth are open to selling him. Bournemouth want £45 million. Liverpool would rather, as any buying club, would rather not spend that amount of money on the player. But I'm pretty sure they'll come to an agreement because I think the player himself, from everything that we're led to believe, has pretty much set his heart on moving to Liverpool, which is half the battle when you come to these transfer dealings.
I think it's a good move for Liverpool because I think it will mean the end of Kostas Tsimikas' time at Liverpool, but I think it basically enables Kerkez to move into the team quite gently, a bit of a soft launch into the first choice left back position. He might initially come in straight away and Andy Robertson might drop to the bench, but there will be times next season when Liverpool need Robertson's experience and, don't think he's a totally busted flush. He has just won the Premier League with Liverpool, but a lot of fans seem to think maybe out with the old and in with the new, but I think it's a nice way of gradually phasing in Kerkez. Like I say, he's 10 years younger than Robertson, and I just got this vision next summer of Robertson perhaps walking away at the end of his contract, giving one of the biggest heroes ovations ever, on the final day.
It's looking like it's going to be a very strong start to the summer for Liverpool. When you look, they've already got Mamardashvili and they've already got Frimpong in. We've spoken about Wirtz, we've spoken about Kerkez. Considering our mentions for the last 6 years have been people criticising Liverpool for not being more active in the transfer market, the club are finally giving them what they want.
Well, Liverpool didn't win the transfer window last season, did they? They only got Chiesa and Mamardashvili for this season, and a lot of people were upset. Some of them were quite swearily upset. Some of them had to go at us. Some of them had to go at me. Some of them had to go at Paul. I was quite happy with the ones that had to go at Paul. That was good. And Liverpool ended up winning the Premier League. Now, you'd rather win the Premier League than the transfer window. However, a transfer window is not just for the season that's upcoming. It's for many seasons. And Liverpool have... I wouldn't say, not the phrase they got away with it, but they did take a risk and a gamble by not making the signings last summer. For whatever reason, they wanted to sign Zubimendi. We know that one didn't happen. And they decided there and then, we're not just going to sign anybody, we're just going to sign the players that we need, and there's nobody around that we want at the moment. So we're going to stick with what we've got, and we're going to put the trust in the new head coach and his coaching staff to get more out of the players, and they got more points and they won the league. So that worked. However, that's not sustainable. They already knew that. That's why they signed Mamardashvili to prepare for Kelleher going. So they've already got a bit of future planning. Obviously, they've had to replace Trent. So that's one. So that's two signs that they've had to make. They saw, and you pointed this out very early in the season, Paul, about that they could the number 10 area was one where they could improve, and that's one that they're addressing now by trying to bring in Wirtz. Left back, they can't have Tsimikas and Robertson going on forever. They're going to bring in a left back. And so then it's what's next, and
that's my next point as well.
Exactly. So we're pretty much. I'm pretty sure we're going to be in agreement where the number 9 is one they'll look at, and then I wrote something. It may have been yesterday. They all merge into one at this stage of the year about centre backs, and you look at last summer they tried to sign Lenny Yoro, which was deemed as being outside of their normal transfer dealings because they saw him as a generational talent. They were in for Huijsen for a bit until they realised this summer, when they realised he quite clearly is a Real Madrid fan, Spaniard, wants to go to Real Madrid, and they didn't even pursue that too much further. But Chelsea were in there as well. They see him as another generational talent. And that is something that long-term Liverpool are looking to do, because Van Dijk's got his contract for 2 years. I'd be surprised if he signed another one after that. We've mentioned Konate, who's out of contract at the end of the end of the season coming. And Gomez has hardly played the season, and he nearly got sold last year. And there's question marks over Quanta and whether he's a player that Slot wants to go forward, even though we've been led to believe that they are planning to have him available next season. But he didn't play an awful lot this season. That's just a statement of fact. So centre-back's an area they're going to have to look at. So they've sorted all these, or about to sort all these other areas. Then they can concentrate on the ones that aren't deemed absolutely necessary for now. So they need the left back, they need the right back. They feel as though they need the number 10. I think the striker's one that I reckon they'll get a striker in, or certainly a player who can play down the centre of the attack is one of his main positions. And then they're going to be looking at a centre-back. So if there are to be any more incomings, I'd imagine there are 2 that will be happening.
Yeah, wouldn't disagree with that, to be fair. Doyley's spot on when he says about Lenny Yoro and then Dean Huijsen. You have clearly young, very talented centre-backs who now play for Manchester United and Real Madrid. You know, we can laugh at United, but they're still a major club, aren't they, with huge ambitions and huge finances. And the number 9 is just a glaring one, isn't it? You know, Darwin Núñez, we still expect him to leave at some point, and it's going to be no great shock if and when he does, and that will facilitate the incoming of a number 9. Hugo Ekitike of Frankfurt is the one who seems to be doing the rounds at the moment, isn't it? There was talk of Isak earlier this summer, but I think Newcastle finishing in the top 4, or rather the Champions League places at least, means that they haven't got any PSR issues anymore.
It's like 5 big strikers and they have been linked with a whole host of clubs, because so many clubs are wanting the strike. You've got Sasko as well, Osimhen, and then Gokares at Sporting.
Yeah. So we're still none the wiser really as to what Arne Slot wants from a number 9. You know, he's sort of just stuck a little bit of a plaster over that position all season, haven't he? And they've got through largely with the contributions from the wide areas. You know, Gakpo, Salah and Diaz are the top 3 scorers, weren't they? Not in that order, of course, but the number 9s between them, Núñez and Jota, got 11 goals, Premier League goals. So that's certainly an area they can improve. I don't see them selling Jota. I'm not sure whether there's a market for him. Happy enough to keep him as a squad player. I think he'd be good in that role, not having to play every single minute, every game. You know, injury issues well documented. But it's, I guess, you know, still looking for Wirtz to get over the line, and we expect Kirkes to be done to join Frimpong. But you know, once they do turn their attentions to a number 9, it's going to be interesting to see what sort of profile they go for.
And sticking with you, Gorsty, they've confirmed the first friendly in terms of the calendar, not the first one they've announced this summer.
Yeah.
They've confirmed a friendly away at Preston North End. It's a good first chance to see these new signings in actions with no international tournaments this year.
Yeah. Well, we know Frimpong will be involved, don't we, at some stage. We'll see if Wirtz has been signed by then. You'd imagine, or you'd hope that he would. It's still over a month away, isn't it? 5 weeks. Preston North End on Sunday, the July 13th. 3 o'clock kickoff at Deepdale. First pre-season friendly of the summer. Liverpool returned to pre-season training earlier that week. And then from there, they've got a little bit of a gap, haven't they, in the schedule? I think they fly to Hong Kong on the 21st before that game against AC Milan on the 26th, and then they play Yokohama Marinos on the 30th, and then the Community Shield on the 10th. So there's a little bit of time in there to work in maybe 1 or 2 friendlies. I still think there'll be an Anfield one, maybe the week of the Community Shield, midweek, Wednesday night under the lights and all that sort of stuff. So pre-season plans coming together, and you know, I think the exciting thing is Liverpool are being proactive and aggressive early on in June. So, you know, in an ideal world, they will have everyone in by then, and we'll be able to see them all in action.
I've just had a message off Lewis Steele saying one of his mates has said, "Has Ian Doyle got an issue with you?" Which I presume he's listening to the podcast because I refused to name it. It's like, no, Lewis is getting a little bit of grief today on social media, and I decided not to draw attention to it. But now that others have, there you go.
We do a quiz with him, don't we, before every home
We
game?
do a quiz, yeah. We do a quiz. And
I didn't draw attention to any grief.
His name.
Yeah.
Well, I was
mentioned his name because of the video with
I know,
Wirtz.
but I was just trying
to say
not to...
he was the only reporter on the patch who was out in Bavaria last night watching Germany v Portugal, and clearly he was on Wirtz watch and got not necessarily a word with him, but a nod, and a lot of people have seen that footage, and have taken whatever they want from it.
Has producer Ian got any plans to make Lewis a friend of the show, getting on? Sure, great. That was so enthusiastic.
You asked him ages ago, and it's not happened yet, has it? If only there was some way we could listen to you.
Go on, publicly ask him now.
Come and get me, please. From the Blood Red podcast.
This week we have actually had one confirmed Liverpool deal. Kevin Kelleher has left. He's finally... Kevin?
I just want to hear you say it again.
This isn't the first time today you've mocked me for how I am saying things.
Well, we know why that is, Theodore. And let's not go down that road.
Yes, he is finally getting that desired number one status that he's craved for so long at Brentford.
You'd assume he is.
You'd assume so, yes. They have sold their first choice goalkeeper.
True.
Sad to see him go, but it's good to see him get that opportunity.
Well, yeah, because he was too good to be a number 2, let's be honest. He still ended up playing, was it 20 games this season?
Yeah, he played 10 in the Premier League.
I think it's about 20 games this season. I think he played 23 or 24, something along those lines last season. So he's played quite a lot over the last couple of years due to Alisson's, normally his hamstring, but there's been one or two other issues. And the best thing you could ever say about Kelleher is that when he plays, nobody bats an eyelid. And that's the thing. And when you are replacing a goalkeeper who I still think is still the best in the world, I know that, our Everton supporter thinks that Jordan Pickford is probably the best goalkeeper in the world. But he's good, but he's not as good as Alisson. I think most other goalkeepers would say that as well. It's tough, and he's bided his time. He's picked up quite a few trophies, but as a footballer, unless your name's Winston Bogard, you can go and look that one up.
That's a hell of a throwback, that one.
You can go and look that one up. They want to play, and Brentford. They've already a little bit of a relationship there, isn't there now, between Liverpool and Brentford, because they sold Sepp Vandenberg and Fabio Carvalho. And funnily enough, I actually think that Kelleher's the best deal of the whole lot for the amount of paid. I know his last year of his contract and that, but it'll be a good deal. And I'll tell you what, when he comes back to Anfield, he'll get a great reception.
Yeah, it'll be like Clemens, won't it?
Yeah, really good reception.
That's what, 12.5 initial fee, 18 million with the add-ons. Imagine they're going to be quite achievable add-ons. And Kelleher, if he shows his Liverpool form with Brentford, he's going to be first choice there 5-6 years easily. He's going to show why Liverpool rate him so highly.
Yeah, Liverpool don't tend to be sort of deferential to the players, even for the ones who they appreciate what they've done for them when it comes to selling them. And I think Liverpool have sort of gone the other way on this one, to sort of accept a little bit of a knockdown fee so he gets his move and gets it early, because we wanted to move last summer but got told no. Got told that he was needed for cover for Alisson, and that proved to be an inspired decision, because Alisson pulls his hamstring in early October and is out for 2 months, and Kelleher comes in, and like Doyley says, no one bats an eyelid. So yeah, he moves with the well wishes of everyone at the club and the fan base, and he's a 2-time Carabao Cup winner, and totally deserves all the plaudits that came his way when he announced he was leaving, and he's due a hell of a reception from the Kop next season.
I imagine it'll come at Wembley, but do we have a favourite Kelleher moment?
Yeah, I think that was quite good, wasn't
it? Hurriedly speaking to him on the phone in Dubai was a bit of an experience. One of the press officers there basically messaged me and said, hurry up and get out of this press conference. I've got Kelleher on the phone, and he literally passed Kelleher the phone and speaking to him, and that was a bit of a surreal experience just before they played Man City, I think, in the Carabao Cup, and he, I think Liverpool were holders at the time, and that was not necessarily a favourite experience, but it was a bit of a surreal one.
Lewis update. He enjoyed the come and get me plea, but he didn't like your pronunciation of Kelleher's first name, which I'd like to hear again, please.
I'm not going to say it again. I don't need to mention it again until Liverpool play Brentford. Federico Chiesa now. That's a name I can say a little bit better. He's done Federico. He's done it.
I can't believe he's just done that. Anyway, go on.
Well, I spent a week in Italy whilst you were off to Brighton, just basically going Federico Chiesa in an Italian accent. Anyway, he's done an interview in his homeland this week, and he's hinted that he would be open for a return to Italy. Not really much surprise, but I think you had a proper read of that interview.
Yes, I read it.
When it was
put it fully through Google Translate. Yeah. I mean, okay, let's put it this way. If he ends up staying at Liverpool, I think he quite likes it there, and I think that's quite clear. But again, unless you're Winston Boharder, you want to actually play football, and he hasn't.
Did you say that one right?
Yeah, I did this time. Yeah. I thought it would be set a bad example, be a bit hypocrite. So yeah, he clearly wants to play football. And the thing is, the most interesting thing in the entire interview is that he says he's desperate to get back into the Italy national team, and he wants to play in the World Cup. Which, given the fact Italy haven't qualified for the last 2 World Cups, it's not a given that's going to happen next year. But I think they probably will this time. And he wants to be involved, and the only way he's going to get involved is if he's playing. While the Premier League has very good exposure around the world, you've still got to be playing in it, and he hasn't. So a move back to Italy would probably suit him, given the fact he's not played hardly this season, suggests that he isn't perhaps best suited for playing in the Premier League. He wouldn't be the first Italian for whom that's the case. Certainly Italian forward. You look at Liverpool's record with Italian players isn't particularly amazing, and not just there, to be fair, other clubs. So, yeah, if he ends up getting a move back there, fair play. I mean, there's been talk of AC Milan linking up with Allegri, who was his manager at Juventus, I think, yeah. And he said never rule out going back to Juventus. He really enjoyed it there. And he enjoyed the fans, and he thinks the club. He loves the fans and the clubs. I don't think he enjoyed so much getting bombed out of the first team, but
that manager's
he's
long
gone now. Yeah, he's long gone. So interesting times, because that was an opportunist signing for Liverpool last summer. Again, you could say it's a gamble that hasn't worked out because he hardly played. But if Liverpool get the money, or certainly get their money back on him, then it's a gamble that no harm was done, and he ended up getting a service of a player. If he was retired, would have probably played a bit more.
Yeah, I'd be amazed if he stays at Liverpool, to be honest. We were talking to Arne Slot about it the other week, and he was very effusive in his praise for his attitude and his work rate, and basically said if he gets a full pre-season behind him, then he gets a chance and he expects him to stay. But I've got a feeling he was just saying that, if I'm being honest. I think maybe to preserve value, you're not necessarily going to say, we'll take any offers. But yeah, given how little he's played, his stock is still high in Italy. I see a world where Liverpool do look to do some business and move him on, and then a little space opens up, doesn't it, on that right side? And whether that's Frimpong, who can cover for when Salah has a little bit of a breather, Africa Cup of Nations, or whatever it may be. Possibly Ben Doak, we'll see. But yeah, I would be amazed if Chiesa stays at this point.
Producer Ian C has pricked up that you're mentioning Ben Doak there, but you have to watch Royal Blue for that. We'll go through, I think, some of the questions now, because obviously we're going to get quite a few transfer ones. The guys want to know...
Guys and girls
want to know what you think the midfield will look like, assuming Florian Wirtz signs. Will it be a case of Szoboszlai is back up to him, or does he drop into that deeper role and it's rotation with McAllister and Gravenberch?
Yes.
You're going for the second?
To both. Yes, to both.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Slot spoke after the Brighton game, didn't he, about playing Szoboszlai in his preferred position, deeper. And I think he said that he did well and he was happy with what he saw. So I think it will be a case of Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, McAllister and Jones sort of rotating in those two positions, and then further forward will be Wirtz, aided by Harvey Elliott, and then you've got a little bit of a midfield enforcer specialist in Wataru Endo, if he stays, to come in and perform a very specific job of keeping the game state as it is, I guess, coming on with 15 to go when Liverpool are 1 or 2-0 up.
That question was from Barry McLaughlin. He also asks any idea where Simicast might go. Is there any sniff of interest?
No. Leeds United do think are interested, but
they'd be pricey for him. They'd be pricey. In terms of wages, not a certain fee.
Gecky asks, he asks, do you guys think...
I'm enjoying this.
With a G.
Yeah.
Do you think guys will sign a striker? You've already said that, but so who would you choose as the striker if you could pick anyone? He'd choose Gyökeres.
Isak, obviously.
I mean, Isak would be unbelievable.
Yeah, the best one.
Yeah, can't say I watch a whole lot of European football these days. Gyökeres looks like a player with a big future, doesn't he? Did really well at Sporting, but Benjamin Sesko, similar mould, isn't he? He looks someone who's similarly talented. He's only 20, 21, something like that. Maybe he's ready to take the next step in his career. But it's a shallow pool, isn't it, really, in terms of who can improve Liverpool?
Just the way football's going at the moment, though, isn't it? Is that the love for wide players and centre forwards who kind of drop a little bit deeper. I think over time we'll end up getting back to a centre forward. I'm not saying lump the ball to them, but a taller person who can get on the end.
Haaland is the outlier, isn't he?
He's just a pure finisher, though, isn't he? He's like one of those footballers that I don't necessarily think is actually that good at football, but he's very good at scoring goals, which is the hardest thing to do. So if you're going to be good at one thing, be good at that.
More questions on strikers, more questions on centre-backs, which I think we've covered in the episode.
I love that we call them episodes, by the way. It makes it sound like it's an ongoing
episode
series.
description box.
Exactly, ongoing series.
No, but it's just that like there's a final episode where we wake up and it's all a dream, that kind of thing. Anyway, go on.
Someone says, Matthew, says that I didn't read the name until afterwards, but yeah, he goes, Wirtz is an option on the left wing from what he saw in the Germany game last night. But do we see that when you've got Diaz, you've got Gakpo, you've got Jota? Obviously, not all of them.
I can't. I mean, well, he's got to sign first, but if he does sign, I think there's enough on there on the left. Something would have to. I mean, let's put it this way: we've seen Curtis Jones play on the left, and we played Zaboslai and Jones play as false nines this season. So don't rule anything out. Slot will do whatever he feels necessary. But the fact of the matter is that he met with Wirtz, Flo, your mate. You call him Flo, don't you?
It's his Instagram handle.
Anyway, met with him. And he painted a very accurate picture of where he wanted to play.
Explained it all. Explained,
that's what he would have done. Yeah, explained
Tactics board.
Yeah. He would have got like a little football manager out on his tablet, and he would have done all this, that, and the other. And he will know exactly where he's going to be playing and where he wants him to play, and that's part of the reason why he's picked Liverpool ahead.
I think that's entirely fair. I think everything points towards Liverpool having more of a defined plan for him than Bayern Munich did with Vincent Kompany, who was just almost like I say, we'll just bring you in and we'll fit you in. And how much he wanted to compete with Jamal Musiala, I guess. Can you fit them both into the team? I'm not sure. But for me, I think if Liverpool are going to be paying a club record fee for Florian Wirtz, I don't think they're going to be just sort of shoehorning him into positions where he's not best suited. So he can play in the wide areas, but you'd want him in the central area where he's most comfortable, where you can get the best out of him, and he can play the sort of football that made him the Bundesliga Player of the Year.
For me, that's the one thing that Liverpool have improved in terms of transfers over the last 15 years, is buying players who fit what they want rather than, oh, look at this big name, we need to sign him immediately. And I'm not saying the reverse to that a little bit, but it tends not to happen very often. And the amount of successes they've had, certainly when you compare them to some of the other big clubs of recent times, has far outweighed the failures. And that's why they've started winning a lot of trophies over the past 7 years.
We've mentioned that centre-back could be on the agenda later in the summer. Obviously, they've not got Huijsen, who's gone to Real Madrid. But Barry, who's got quite a few questions in here, he asked, could Hato from Ajax be an option?
They could all be options.
Well covered.
I mean, I think he plays... He's one of those sorts of...
Does it both, doesn't he? Left back and
you know, almost like Pep Guardiola does a lot, doesn't he? Where he plays maybe Nathan Ake at full-back or Josko Vardiol, who are players who aren't, you know, not necessarily traditional full-backs, but there's been a trend in recent years, having of full-backs being attack-minded, bombing on, you know, Andy Robertson style. Certainly what Kerkez is and maybe what Trent was at one stage. Hato seems a lot more defensively minded. Calafiori sort of that mould, isn't he? Maybe that's a new trend for full-backs who can play centres as well. Hato fits that bill. Could possibly be an option.
We've got a Finch-related comment here.
Oh, God, here we go.
From Paul Lee. Ian Doyle is the ringer for Spike Milligan.
Spike Milligan? I'm not having that.
You're not having that.
Spike Milligan's been dead for about 20 years.
Can he sing the Yin Tong song using the word Frimpong instead when he's playing with Finch?
No, we can't. That's mildly... I don't like where that's going. Let's just move on to the next question.
You're probably the only one old enough to know what the Yin Tong...
I also know it. Just carry on.
We'll move on. Okay. We've got a question about homegrown exits. Is it a potential issue to stop some players leaving?
That's your remit.
That is my remit.
And sell-on clauses.
Not as much of an issue with the homegrown players, because it's not a case of you need X, Y, and Z homegrown. You're just not allowed more than 17 overseas players. So Liverpool could technically have a squad of 17 and then beef it out with the under-21s players, and they would be fine. They have got a lot of younger players that are becoming of age that will still fill out the squad, and it's not a massive issue. And you've got players like, say, Harvey Elliott stays, he's just become of age, so it's not as big an issue, even if they sell half a dozen of these homegrown players.
Jeremie Frimpong is homegrown, isn't he?
He counts as one. And then there's been a couple of players that have been... Say they get Anthony Gordon, that's another one, isn't it? Scouse Ned says, great show, boys, keep up the good work. Thanks for that.
Just throwing that one in, that's good.
That.
Yeah, that's okay. No,
he's also given us a little bit of a news line here. Apparently, Kerkez will miss the Hungary game tomorrow against Sweden, confirmed by the manager.
All right, I'll get out and write that before we leave.
How exciting. Hopefully Wirtz misses the third place playoff as well. It's the Nations League. I'm not even sure how those finals work at this point. I didn't realise it was only one leg. Have got anything?
Well, if you don't know it, exactly, international football, we haven't got a clue.
I think that might be all we've got time for. And all we've got.
Have you got any questions for us, Theo?
Oh, we've got another question here about Besetic. What's the plan with him this summer? Any ideas?
Bring him back as he's already coming back because his loan's finished. Then have a look at him during the first weeks of the summer and see where to go after that.
Feels like he might have passed him by at Liverpool, doesn't it? He very much feels of the Klopp, Pep Linders era, and sure he did okay last season at Las Palmas. Can't say I've seen much of him, but we'll see what happens in the summer.
It's going to be interesting because they've got the under-21s Euros as well. So you'd imagine if he's called up by Spain, he misses the start of pre-season, even if it's only like a week or two. But then you're playing catch-up again. We already know they've got that Preston game. But if he does well in pre-season, there's always that opportunity of starting the opening day of the season.
It's a congested area now, though, isn't it? If Liverpool do get Wirtz, then that means that, like we say, Szoboszlai is more likely to be considered as a deeper midfielder. So there's the 4 senior players there competing, and that's before you factor in Endo, who has a very sort of specific role in there. So there's 5 competing for the 2 spots.
And Tyler Morton's ahead of
Tyler Morton, yeah.
Besetic anyway.
And then you've got McConnell, even though he was in a cast on the pitch for the trophy presentation.
Feels like Tyler Morton
he'll go
is approaching the summer where he'll leave.
Yeah.
He might be another one who Liverpool almost priced out of a move last summer, but perhaps will not happen again.
Yeah, I think that's all we've got time for on the questions. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks to Gorsty and Doyley for joining me. We'll be back again on Monday. Yes, Monday. Just got to check because we're throwing it around by doing Thursday today. Anyway, who knows? We might even have some new transfer updates to discuss. Fingers crossed. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.